Hey guys, what's up? Closure from TechInform.us, and in today's video I wanted to talk about the difference between Final Cut Pro X and Final Cut Pro 7. Final Cut Pro X and Final Cut Pro 7 are a lot alike in many ways and unalike in most ways. Final Cut Pro 7 was released back several years ago and has a horrible, very dated user interface. Now I had Final Cut Pro 7 on this machine up until about yesterday when I installed Final Cut Pro X. I'm not going to be able to show you guys Final Cut Pro 7, however, I will explain exactly what it looked like and you can look up images yourself. When you opened up Final Cut Pro 7, you were greeted with a very white, very light gray user interface. It was very hard on the eyes and very straining. It also wasn't very intuitive, which was very frustrating to many users. Unless you knew exactly how to use the software or had a lot of time on your hands to try it out and learn about the software, you really couldn't learn it, and quite frankly, that wasn't very user-friendly. Now, once you knew how to use it, it was incredible software, and I know there are several people who watch my videos that are going to nag on me for saying that, but it was incredible software, and it still is today. Now, just because Final Cut Pro X was released doesn't mean all professional filmmakers are going to switch to it. Final Cut Pro 7 was and is, at least for the time being, probably the more professional choice. The intermediate filmmakers, such as higher-end YouTubers, higher-end, low-end production for smaller films, people who can't exactly shell out $1,000 on a piece of editing software, will look more toward Final Cut Pro X. Final Cut Pro X is impeccable software. When you launch it here, you're greeted with this beautiful opening screen. When you launch the software, you're greeted with a beautiful UI. It is dark gray, so it's easy on the eyes. It has a very iMovie 11-esque look, yet the power of Final Cut Pro 7. So basically, it is iMovie on steroids, which in my opinion is incredible. Most of the features of Final Cut Pro 7 are in Final Cut Pro X, however, they might not be quite as easy to find. Now, I'm not saying Final Cut Pro 7 was easy to find the features in. It wasn't. Quite simply, it wasn't. However, if you've been using Final Cut Pro 7 for an extended period of time, you know all the key commands, you know every feature, where that feature is located, how to get to that feature in one keystroke, you know every little shortcut. Well, Final Cut Pro X can be just as easy, and just as professional, and just as fast, and just as sleek. However, you gotta relearn all the keystrokes. There are completely new key commands, just as an example, as you can see here, the blade tool, all these tools are completely new, they're different, and just for instance, the blade tool used to be a different key on Final Cut Pro 7. Now, it is B, which makes sense. B, blade, whatever, makes sense. But, there's just little features that are going to make Final Cut Pro 7 users hard to change over. Maybe Apple did it on purpose. Maybe they didn't want everyone from Final Cut Pro 7 coming over to Final Cut Pro X. You don't know. The application is completely rebuilt in 64-bit. Does anybody using Final Cut Pro 7 remember going up to the menu bar and clicking render every 3 seconds? Yeah, wasn't fun. Now you have this nice little render tab here that renders in the background. Now all my clips are 100% rendered, so nothing's rendering. However, if I were to create a new story, let's actually do that now. Create, new project, drag in a few clips, boom. Let's actually use E, boom, and let's put this in. I don't want that there. Let's put this up here. And now you can see that this is red here. I'm going to move my cursor to the side and it will begin to render. You can see it is now rendering in the background 50%, 70%, 100%. And it turns green when it is completely rendered. Now this red goes away and this clip is now over the video. And it is rendered. And there you go. So it now automatically renders. You don't have to tell it to render every time you do something. It'll automatically render. And that's fine in my opinion. Because quite frankly, rendering was a hassle. And now we don't have to do it. Now, who needs Final Cut Pro X, who needs Final Cut Pro 7, and who could just stay with the basic iMovie? Baseline YouTubers who just make simple vlogs, simple tech videos, simple anything. They can stick with iMovie. I can stick with iMovie. Anybody who's actually trying to make a living off this, trying to make any money off it, trying to be as professional as possible should definitely step up to Final Cut Pro X. It is basically iMovie on steroids. It is the feel and sleek and sophistication of iMovie with the power, the raw editing power of Final Cut Pro 7. Now, who should step up from Final Cut Pro X to Final Cut Pro 7? Any major film editor who isn't comfortable moving to Final Cut Pro X should definitely step up to Final Cut Pro 7. Final Cut Pro X is very new software. It still hasn't been completely tuned for all the OSs. It still hasn't been completely fixed. You know, it came out 2 days ago. Not everything is fixed on it, and you can't expect everything to work 100%. So any huge professional film companies that are creating huge movies or anything need to stay with Final Cut Pro 7 for the time being. They can move to Final Cut Pro X eventually, but I would wait for Apple to get all the bugs out, all the issues, and basically just hold off a little while. iMovie, Final Cut Pro X, and Final Cut Pro 7 are 3 amazing pieces of editing software. However, I personally decided to stay with Final Cut Pro X. Like I said, I've used iMovie for a long time. I used Final Cut Pro 7 for a few weeks. I'm not one of those people who switched to Final Cut Pro 7, said, oh, I can't learn it, it sucks, I can't figure this out. I spent time on it. I learned it. I had a friend who knows it very well teach me all the features I needed to know. I learned Final Cut Pro 7. Basically, all the main features of Final Cut Pro 7 I learned. I learned how to edit it. I edited 10 vlogs at least in Final Cut Pro 7. I had no issues. Final Cut Pro X is just simpler for me. Simpler, easier, sleeker, faster. It's just all around better for me. And that's bottom line. You're going to have to make your own decision. I can't make the decision for you. If you want to stick with iMovie, go for it. It's very inexpensive. It's $70 or something. Final Cut Pro X, $300. Final Cut Pro 7, $1,000. You just got to figure out what you want, what you need to do, how comfortable you are with using new software, how comfortable you are with using old software. If the old software works for you, by all means, stay with it. You know, if you love it, stay with it. That's how it is. With all this said, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/code4595. Check out the website, techinform.us, where I get tech-related content posted every day. I also now do daily vlogs, youtube.com/colesvlogging. And with all this said, I will see you guys in the next video.